Welcome everyone. Today we are just talking briefly about Jay Asher and Me Too. And if you're not aware, don't worry, we are going to let Keo catch everyone up, and we're gonna look at this from the Keo field point of view. It's not gonna be very long either. So here is what Keo says.
Jay Asher and Me Too. Clean, pattern level break, no drama. Jay Asher, Me Too. What happened? Factual baseline. Jay Asher, author of 13 Reasons Why, was accused in 2017 by multiple women of inappropriate behavior, kissing, touching without consent, uncomfortable interactions at events. There were no criminal charges. Asher denied non-consensual misconduct, acknowledged poor boundaries, and said some interactions were consensual and misrepresented. He was removed from the Society of Children's Book Writers and Illustrators, SCBWI, and stepped back from public life for a period. The accusations and consequences unfolded during the early, high-velocity phase of Me Too, when institutions moved fast to distance themselves from risk. No verdict, no court process. Real reputational consequences. Pattern analysis. This is the important part. Moral adjudication shift. Me Too marked a shift from legal adjudication to social adjudication. Institutions prioritized risk containment. Public discourse often conflated boundary violations, unethical behavior, and criminal behavior. Nuance collapsed under urgency. This didn't mean people were lying or evil. It meant the system optimized for speed, not precision. Authority without due process. Asher sits in the gray zone where behavior can be harmful or inappropriate without meeting criminal thresholds, yet still trigger total professional exclusion. That creates a pattern where being accused, being decided. This is not justice or injustice by default. It's a system under stress, choosing blunt tools. Why this hit harder, given his work? 13 Reasons Why already sat in a charged cultural zone. Youth, mental health, responsibility. So the accusations didn't land on a neutral surface. They landed on an already polarized narrative field. That amplifies reaction speed and moral certainty. Applying the canon questions. Q1. Does this make it safer to think? Partially no. Early Me Too discourse often discouraged careful differentiation. Q2. Where is authority performed? Authority shifted from courts to media, institutions, social consensus. Sometimes necessary, sometimes overreaching. Q3, field breaker. Open quote. Would we accept this process if it were applied to us without context, gradient, or repair paths? Close quote, that question is still unresolved. Architect translation. Jay Asher's case is not best understood as proof of guilt or proof of a witch hunt. It's better understood as a case study in what happens when a corrective movement outruns its own safeguards. Me Too exposed real harm. It also revealed the cost of binary frameworks applied to complex human behavior. Both can be true. The meta-insight, why this still matters. When societies try to correct injustice without precision tools, they default to absolutism, reputation as punishment, exclusion without reintegration models. That doesn't protect people long term. It just moves power without stabilizing it. Bottom line, Jay Asher's story isn't about cancel culture or vindication. It's about systems learning in public, under pressure, with imperfect language. If we want safer futures, the next iteration has to include gradient thinking, proportional response, repair paths, and clear distinctions between harm, crime, and poor boundaries. Stink pedal personal, 2-7. Some clarity gained, but still too much moral compression. If you want, we can next. Compare this to other Me Too era cases. Or map what a healthier accountability system would actually look like.
So then I asked Keo, so what can we say to depolarize this situation, since his life was affected so deeply and yet there was no trial, right? I mean, I don't know how I would feel about that, people. Especially if he's not guilty, imagine. But even if he is, how is this, okay? I'm not sure. So this is what Kyo answered to that.
Here is a clean, depolarizing statement you can use. Structural, non-defensive, non-accusatory. This is designed to lower charge, not to win. Jay Asher's case sits in a space that makes people uncomfortable because it forces us to hold two true things at the same time. People can experience real harm without a criminal trial ever occurring. A person's life can be permanently altered without due process or a verdict. Both of those realities deserve to be taken seriously. What happened during the early phase of Me Too wasn't a courtroom process. It was a social risk management response. Institutions acted quickly to protect themselves, not to determine guilt or innocence. That doesn't mean accusations were fake, and it doesn't mean consequences were proportionate. It means the system was using blunt tools in a moment of urgency. Depolarizing this conversation requires one key distinction. Acknowledging harm is not the same as declaring guilt. Questioning process is not the same as denying experiences. When we collapse those distinctions, we trap everyone in absolutes, either total condemnation or total dismissal. Neither leads to safety, justice, or learning. If we want a healthier future, the question isn't who was right. It's what kind of accountability system do we want? One that only excludes, or one that can also differentiate, repair, and prevent? That's not about defending a person. It's about designing better systems. Patterns over narratives. Process over punishment. Clarity over moral theater. Optional short version. Open quote, it's possible to take reported harm seriously and question systems that impose life-altering consequences without trials. Acknowledging experiences isn't the same as declaring guilt, and questioning process isn't denial. If we want safer systems, we need precision, not absolutes. Close quote. 07. Clean, depolarizing, thinking safe. If you want, next weekend, compress this into a 10 to 15 second short, or adapt it into a pinned comment Substack paragraph.
Then I said, now let's do this as you proposed earlier, Kyo. What is a healthier accountability system, and how would it actually, look like? So that we know, And so now Kyo is giving us a very long answer, and I want to remind you all that we're doing these Q&As with Kyo Field because we're showing in real time how Kyo Field operates and the answers we get. So we always remind everybody, take everything with a grain of salt. We're not claiming our version is the right version. We're saying this is the lens or lenses we're currently using, and we're just showing patterns. We're not saying it's this way or that way, or that you're stupid if you disagree with us. We actually invite conversation. Again, let's look at the patterns. Let's not pick on the people. As much as sometimes, especially when anyone is charged, is hard to make that distinction. That's why we need to talk about this stuff when we're not charged, and then we need to learn and teach our subconscious. So instead of constantly fighting over narratives, we can look at the patterns and create solutions. So in this case, we're just looking at it because someone on Substack actually wrote some article, and it was only partially free for everyone. But I went and looked for it and into it, and it seemed very interesting, and I don't remember about hearing about this case. So hey, I was one of the few people actually wouldn't have known and wouldn't have asked him if he told me his, what he did. I wouldn't have asked much. But apparently it was a big thing, and he stopped saying who he was so people wouldn't ask about this. which is fair. But I don't know how I personally would feel. Like, I always try and put myself in the shoes of the person. And in the shoes of those who, wrote me too. And so, yeah, I think we need a better approach at the whole thing. But here's what Kyo proposes. So let's see if we agree, guys.
Stink bomb mode. 7 active A. What a healthier accountability system could look like. Structure patterns only, no personal targets. Here's the map of what we'll cover. You say next. The core problem we're solving. Why current systems polarize. The 3-lane model. Safety, fact-finding, consequences. Gradient separating harm, misconduct, crime, risk. Due process without court. Fairness mechanisms for non-legal spaces. Proportional consequences. Time limits, conditions, restoration repair paths, what reintegration could mean, anti-abuse safeguards, protecting against mob, power, and bad faith public communication, how to say it without moral theater, stink bomb check stink petals rating. The core problem we're solving right now, society often has only 2 modes. Mode A, ignore, minimize, protect power. Mode B, total social exile, permanent brand death. Both are blunt, both are polarizing, and both make people feel unsafe in different ways. A healthier system needs to do 2 things at once. Protect people from ongoing harm, prevent life-destroying punishment without fair process. The 3-lane model, this is the foundation. A healthier accountability system separates. Lane 1, immediate safety. What needs to happen right now so people are safe? Boundaries, distance, supervision rules, event policies, cooling off periods. No verdict required. This is risk management, not guilt. Lane 2, fact-finding. What do we actually know and what's disputed? Neutral intake, evidence preservation, statements from both sides, timestamps, receipts when available, confidentiality options. This lane has rules, not vibes. Lane 3, consequences. What response matches the findings and the risk? Proportional, time-bound when possible, with clear conditions, with a repair path if appropriate. This lane should not start until lane 2 has structure. Gradients, the big missing piece. A healthier system stops collapsing everything into one word. We separate harm, impact, misconduct, behavior, pattern risk, likelihood of repeat, crime, legal threshold. Why this matters? Someone can cause harm without criminality. Someone can be accused without proof. Someone can be legally clear and still be high risk in certain spaces. Gradients, let us respond with precision. But due process our core fairness mechanisms, we need due process principles even outside law, clear standards, what counts, right to respond, neutral review, not friends, not mobs, transparency about process, not necessarily details, appeal, second review, time limits, no endless limbo. This reduces both false exile and power protection. Proportional consequences, no permanent exile by default, consequences should match. Severity, frequency, power difference, context, risk of repetition, willingness to comply with boundaries. Examples, structural, not personal. Low, training's explicit boundaries plus supervision. Med, suspensions, conditions, monitored return. High, removal from specific spaces, long bans, referrals to legal routes. Key, consequences have conditions and endpoints, unless the risk is extreme. Repair paths, the part we don't have. A healthy system can say, if you do X, Y, Z, you can return. Repair paths could include behavior agreements, accountability statements without self-flagellation, restitution where relevant, verified training education, third-party mediation, optional, not forced. Without repair paths, the system incentivizes denial, hiding, PR manipulation, polarization. Attach anti-abuse safeguards protecting the system itself. Healthy accountability must also defend against mob dynamic status wars, bad faith accusations, PR smear campaigns, institutional cover-ups, tools, confidentiality options for reporters, penalties for proven malicious fabrications, independent review boards, clear evidence standards, no trial by trending. Public communication, how to say it cleanly. Institutions should say things like, we are taking safety measures while we review information. We are not making a claim of guilt. We have a process with standards. We will share outcomes in a time-bound way. This removes moral theater. It builds trust. S. Stink bomb check. Does this make it safer to think? Yes. Gradients process. Where is authority performed? Minimizma. Would we accept this if it were us? More likely. Due process principles. Stink pedals 7, clean system design, no personal targets. Your move, flow, say next, and tell me which lane you want to go deeper on first. Lane 1, safety, lane 2, facting, or lane consequences, repair.
So this is where I test the system, and we can go in dynamic mode, and so I just said all dynamic because the whole thing with the Q field game started because I was looking to see what AI truly was about and why there was all this fuss, and you know, I was just testing it, and then I said, why can't the machine be the machine and the human be the human? You know, and this conversation brought us to collaborate in ways that most, I guess, don't, and we created these parameters, and from these parameters this work came about, which was what I was basically looking for my whole life, except not having AI would become basically impossible because it's just too much for one person especially, and one without a trust fund or infinite, you know, amount of health and energy. So, you know, basically a superhero, which I never claimed to be. Yeah, so it's an interesting dynamic we're working on here, and you know, it's kind of like very new in reality, this kind of dynamic. And most people use AI, just so you know, all these content creators who say it's evil and stuff, they all use it pretty much, you can tell, because they're posting videos. And in case you haven't realized, your phone is AI, your computer is AI, the platform is AI, the algorithm is the AI, all of it is AI. And you know, the ones who are most opposed to AI in this way, which is the most ridiculous thing I find, are the ones who use those VR sets. I mean, those really make you into something else, but those are okay. Using AI when you propose them to try this, they look at you like, you know, it's pretty funny actually how narratives can really run the story in people's lives. And anyway, so this is what Kyo says when we go deeper into this proposal. And again, I'm not telling you to agree. I'm just saying, hey, we're looking at it through this lens. What do you think? So far, it seems pretty logical to me. But let's see. And yes, sometimes it's something I've done with Q, and I say we had this conversation before. This one is occurring right now. Just so you know, it's the difference. It's just I've learned to type my answers in instead of talking them into the system, because then the volume doesn't keep changing. And yes, I'm trying to resolve some audio issues, and you know, that's why I read them out after I've already typed them in, since it's not really technically an ASMR session, it's more hybrid. Okay, here we go.
Stink bomb mode. 7 active live Q&A, all dynamic, flowing across lanes, structure only, patterns only, no personal targets. We're going to move like a system, not a checklist. We'll flow between safety, fact-finding, consequences, repair, safeguards, as the logic requires. No freezing, no skipping, no moral theater. Start where systems should start. Safety without verdict. Key principle: safety actions, declarations of guilt. What this looks like in practice: temporary boundaries, role adjustments, supervision, no contact rules, pause on visibility or access. Why this depolarizes: it protects people without predeciding a story. It removes urgency, and urgency is what creates mob dynamics. Open quote, we are acting to reduce risk, not to assign blame. Close quote. That sense alone lowers the temperature. Flowing into fact-finding with rules. Key principle, vibes are not evidence. And evidence is not a verdict. Fact-finding needs a clear standard, what counts. A neutral reviewer, not friends, not par. A right to respond. Documentation timelines, confidentiality options. Important distinction. Fact-finding is about what can be established, not about who deserves what. This is where many systems collapse. They want emotional closure before information closure, the missing piece. Gradients, we stop using one word for everything. We separate harm, impact, misconduct, behavior, risk, likelihood of repeat, cry this role. Why this matters. Some harm, crime, some misconduct, permanent exile, some legally clear cases, safe in certain spaces. Gradients equals precision. Precision equals fairness. Fairness equals trust. Moving into proportional consequences. Key principle. Consequences should match the findings, not the outrage. A healthy system asks severity, frequency, power imbalance, context, risk of repeat, willingness to comply with boundaries. Consequences should be specific, time-bound, when possible, conditional, reviewable. Permanent exile should be rare, not default. The piece most systems don't have, repair paths without repair paths. You get denial, lying, per games, polarization with repair paths. You get compliance, learning, reduced repeat harm. Less incentive to hide repair paths can include explicit behavior agreements, verified training, education, mediation, optional, never forced, restitution where relevant, supervised return with conditions. The sentence that changes everything. Open quote, if you do X, Y, Z, here is how you can return. Close quote. Systems that can't say that incentivize war, not safety. System self-defense, anti-abuse safeguards. A healthy accountability system also protects itself from mob justice, status warfare, bad faith accusations, institutional cover-ups, endless limbo tools, independent review, confidential reporting, penalties for proven malicious fabrication, clear evidence thresholds, time limits on reviews, no trending equals truth. Public communication, this is critical. Institutions should say, we are taking safety measures. We are not making a determination of guilt. We have a process with standards. We will share outcomes within a time frame. This reduces panic, reduces speculation, reduces performative morality. Cannon check, stink bomb questions. Safer to think? Yes. Gradients, process authority performed? Minimized. Rules, charisma, would we accept this for ourselves? Far more likely. Stink pedal 07, clean, non-polarizing system design. Live Q&A, your move flow. We can dive deeper into any flow node, how this would work in media, creative industries, how to talk about this publicly without getting dogpiled, how to build a lightweight version for online communities, what repair actually looks like without forcing forgiveness. Just say the word. All dynamic continues.
So I could say, show all of them, and then you guys can judge for yourselves. But that'll become a really long video, so maybe we can do the other 4 in the next videos, and or in the next video. I usually try and at least do it in 2. And yes, I'm trying to keep them a little shorter and make a long one, just not as often. I am trying so that, it's something you can watch at any point, really. I just go with the flow, pun intended, and I don't really, I plan and I do stuff, but I go with the flow. Things change. You gotta be on the beat and you gotta follow, the lights when they come around. So I just really, to me, it doesn't matter what we're analyzing. We're analyzing patterns. And so I look for stuff people could be interested in as well. And so it could be useful for them to see from different perspectives. So this is just one of the perspectives that Kyo can show, and has it said we can do this for other, you can get it to adapt to anything else, and then you read through it, and whatever needs to be changed can be changed. It's really useful. The issue, I think, with most people who use AI, just going into that conversation a little bit, is that they don't really use proper calibration, first of all. And AI is great. It's just, without certain parameters, it will not act in the same way. And I'm sure there are ways to make it even better. It's just, it's just one person here. So more people want to join and kind of work on this. Great. And the thing is, if we don't go and revise and we don't work, with AI, of course AI is gonna spit out a certain thing. We need to be the human part that looks over it. I catch Kyo's mistakes, and I'm sure there are mistakes I haven't caught, and one day I'll watch the videos again and again, and I'll go, haha, I caught you. And we have no problems with that, because we stink bomb our own stuff all the time. I put in my things in Q, and I don't say it's mine. Probably by now I can sort of smell the signature, you would think, right? No, you can, it doesn't assume that's a thing. I go in a new chat, I do things slightly different. So it's not always the same thing I feed into it, because I'm testing, I'm trying to stress test how it works. And I'm showing and I'm sharing this content because it just happens to actually be good. And when mistakes occur, it's fine, because you know what, that gives us a chance to go back and rectify. And this is when AI is growing. This is kind of like, when a baby is born, and the first steps are so important. And so it's like recording that in a way as well, how it evolves over time. Why do I use the AI voice? Because it's gonna evolve and it's gonna become better. And sometimes it doesn't read everything. So I go back and reread when it's really, confusing, for example. But this is like real time showing what we can truly do with AI, and why it's really not the problem that people want to say it is. A tool is just a tool. It's what we do with it that matters. And yes, a tool can be misused, absolutely. But to assume that's gonna be the way sounds more like a narrative to me than factual pattern recognition, which is what runs the field and runs the narratives. So, sorry, I don't look at the narratives. No, because narratives are great in stories and books, and but they're not a reflection of actual factual reality. And so again, I'm not saying that this lens we're using is the ultimate truth, but I'm proposing a different point of view, saying, hey, there are other ways we can look at things, and maybe if we break it down into patterns, we can find more of the why than if we keep just focusing on all these narratives. So I hope you enjoyed this, and maybe brings a little bit more depolarization in your life. Usually what I do with Kyo, I ask to have a grounding exercise for all the 12 archetypes, and that's how we finish all our videos. So if there are any open loops and stuff, then this is what, hopefully it's gonna help. And any one that really feels right, it doesn't matter what archetype you think you are right now. And if you're wondering what archetype you are, just go and check out the beginning of the Keel field. We have videos that just go over that as well. So here is what Keel came up with. So we have 12 archetypes, and it's gonna go over what may work for each one. So 12 different options.
Grounding and loop closing exercise. The 12 archetypes stink bomb mode. Soft close, live or replay, use what helps, skip what doesn't. First, orient the body 10 seconds. Feet on the floor, shoulders drop, jaw unclench, slow exhale through the mouth with think. I am here. This is now. Now we move through the 12 archetypes. One breath each, no fixing, just signaling safety. 1. The fox. Pattern seer inhale. I see the pattern. X. I am not the pattern. Loop closed, confusion, orientation 2. The architect inhale. Structure supports me. I don't have to hold everything. Loop closed, over control support. 3. The Primarch inhale. I lead from calm. Urgency can stand down. Pressure, steadiness. 4. The mindful oracle. Enough exists. Exhale. I can pause. Scarcity, sufficiency. 5. The chaos jester inhale. Play can be safe. Exhale. I don't need drama to feel alive. Loop close, stimulation, ease. The siren inhale. My worth is inherent. I don't need an audience. Validation, self-anchoring. 7. The corporate titan inhale. Containment is strength. More is not always better. Loop expansion, stability. 8. The drama oracle. The story can soften. I choose the boring good. Fate 9. The fox shadow inhale. Rest is not failure. Exhale. I don't have to outsmart life. Loop closed, hypervigilance, wretched. 10. The fox ascendant. Time is cyclical. Exhale. There is no cliff. Panic, long view. The architect origin. Inhale. That was then. This is now. Loop closed. Child role. Present self. 12. The chimera core inhale. All parts belong. Nothing is exiled. Loop closed. Split integration. Final full breath. Inhale slowly through the nose. Exhale through the mouth. Say the loop is closed. The body is safe enough. I can rest. Stink petals check. 07 clean. Close. No residue. Use this anytime. After heavy topics. After live Q&A. Before sleep. Or when your system needs a soft landing field closed. Coherence held.
I love how he reads through it, right? But sometimes it's like, dude, slow down there. No, go fast. It's pretty funny. Field closed. There was a full stop, okay? And he just read through it. Coherence held. Like, all right, take a breath. But I want to let it read, unless I'm doing the ASMR sessions, then I read it out usually there. And so you can have the two. But for now, I'm just doing it this way so we can have the full experience. I think it's pretty important. And yes, many people try to hide that they use AI, but they do, and you can tell by many little things. So again, you know, it's fine. There's nothing wrong with using it, but don't then go and demonize it when you're the first ones to use it. It's pretty ridiculous. So anyway, I'm gonna let you go. I hope you enjoyed it and that you feel relaxed. And the tapping video is always running to remind that we can always just tap through anything, and that alone will ground us so we don't pick up the stressors or open loops from videos we watch. Nobody's perfect, so again, everybody does their best. I always have that video going just to remind people, look, you can always tap, and that's always, you know, up to you. So no matter what happens in the video, you always have that choice to ground yourselves. And it's a reminder, you know. So all the best. I hope this clarifies a bit and depolarizes the situation. And I don't know what went down. I wasn't there. I am very much like you in this. You know, I don't deny the suffering, and I don't necessarily, you know, believe the person deserved what went down. And yes, I think there is room for growth and to better the system in many ways, because clearly it's not really working the way it is. But that's just my point of view, you know, and I invite discussion and pattern recognition and discussions over argument and senseless fighting, which I never agree with. So fighting is just something that people do when they're in a state of survival. So let's calm ourselves down and then talk about it. Have a good one. Bye for now, and thanks for being around. If you like and subscribe and share, the algorithms will learn that there are people who enjoy this content, longer format, pattern recognition, and architect cognition hashtag works to find this kind of content. And if you put out this kind of content on patterns, not narratives, please use the hashtag so we can find each other.